You know that feeling of the morning school drop-off?
Oh, yeah. The chaos, the backpacks.
Right, exactly. And whether you're a parent or, an aunt and uncle or just someone who deeply cares about the kids in your life, watching them walk through those double doors comes with this very specific expectation.
You expect them to be safe.
Yeah, you expect them to be entering a sanctuary, like a place designed entirely for them to learn and grow and figure out who they are.
But the data paints a very different picture, doesn't it?
It really does. It shatters that expectation completely. Because according to stopbullying.gov, which is managed by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, roughly 20% of students aged 12 to 18 experience bullying nationwide.
Wow. 20%.
Yeah, that is 1 in 5 kids.
Yeah.
I mean, 1 in 5 children who are actually walking into a battleground every single morning.
It kind of forces us to completely reevaluate the daily realities of the kids sitting right in our own living rooms.
Absolutely.
Because a statistic like that, it doesn't describe some rare, isolated anomaly. It describes a really pervasive, systemic feature of modern adolescence.
And that staggering reality, that's exactly the mission of our deep dive today. So we're pulling from an incredibly comprehensive piece of source material titled The Silent Struggle, Identifying and Overcoming School Bullying.
That's a fantastic resource.
It really is. And our goal here is to kind of decode the very quiet, often totally invisible language of distress that children use when they're suffering.
Right.
And from there, we want to map out some actionable expert-backed strategies for you, the listener, to intervene effectively. And I want to point out the title of the article uses the word silent very intentionally.
Yeah, because the vast majority of this trauma is happening without a single word spoken to the adults in charge.
Exactly. Why is that? Why don't they just tell us?
Well, children rarely walk through the front door, drop their backpacks on the kitchen counter, and just announce that they're being tormented.
Right. That just doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't. They're driven by this really complex cocktail of deep shame and, honestly, a very real, very rational fear of retaliation.
Which makes sense. If I tell, it gets worse.
Exactly. And frequently, there's this heartbreaking belief that adults simply cannot change the social hierarchy of their school. So they actively hide the abuse.
Which means we have to step up.
Right. The adults in their lives must evolve into what the source material terms attuned observers. The pain is absolutely present in the child's life. It's just, broadcasting on a frequency we aren't used to tuning into.
Okay, so if a child is actively working to hide this from you, how do you actually bypass those defenses to see what's really happening?
It's a great question.
Because the source points to 12 specific indicators. And looking at the first cluster, which is the physical and academic signs, the correlation starts to make terrifying sense.
It really does.
Like the National Association of School Psychologists points to unexplained physical injuries. And we aren't talking about, a scraped knee from playing kickball at recess.
No, we are talking about inexplicable bruises or a child refusing to make eye contact when you ask why their jacket is ripped.
Yeah. And alongside that, you see this sudden steep drop in academic performance.
Which is huge. And we really need to look at the underlying mechanism driving that academic decline because it is purely biological.
Biological. Wait, so it's not just them being distracted?
Not at all. When a child is being bullied, they essentially enter a state of chronic hypervigilance.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Their brain is constantly scanning the cafeteria, the locker room, the hallways for physical or emotional threats. And in that state, the brain's amygdala, the fear center, it basically hijacks their cognitive resources.
So they literally can't focus on schoolwork.
Exactly. The prefrontal cortex, which handles complex tasks like, algebra or memorizing historical dates, is essentially powered down. The child isn't choosing to ignore their homework. Their biology has decided that learning is secondary to sheer immediate survival.
That biological takeover totally explains the somatic symptoms the article focuses on too, because the physical manifestations are profound. It's not just the cliche of a kid faking a fever to get out of a spelling test, right?
Oh, absolutely not. The stress physically alters their internal systems.
Yeah.
The article actually highlights this 2018 study.
The one in pediatrics.
Yes, published in Pediatrics by Peretz and colleagues. And they found a massive correlation between bullying victimization and somatic symptoms, specifically severe chronic headaches and abdominal pain.
Abdominal pain, so stomach aches.
Right. This is the gut-brain connection in action. When a child's brain perceives the threat of a bully, it triggers a massive release of cortisol and adrenaline.
like a literal fight or flight response.
Exactly. This evolutionary fight or flight response pulls blood flow away from the digestive tract to prep the muscles for running or fighting. So that sudden diversion of resources causes intense, genuine cramping in the stomach.
That is wild. So if a kid sitting at your breakfast table on a Tuesday morning says their stomach hurts before school, I mean, they aren't manipulating you.
No.
Their stomach is actually in knots because their body is treating the school bus like a predator.
That's exactly it. And the trauma doesn't even pause when they go to sleep.
Oh, right. The sleep study.
Yeah, a 2008 study in the Journal of the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry by Bose and their team,
Wow.
they mapped a direct line between bullying and significant sleep disturbances.
Like nightmares. Right.
Nightmares, difficulty falling asleep, or, waking up in a state of sheer panic.
Yeah.
Because the brain uses REM sleep to process emotional data from the day.
So if the day was terrible.
If the day was filled with psychological terror, the night will reflect that. If a child who normally sleeps soundly suddenly develops chronic nocturnal disruptions, you were looking at a glaring warning sign.
And all of that pervasive terror, it fundamentally alters their personality.
Yeah.
There's this deeply unsettling quote in the article from Jason Langley. He's a registered nurse.
Right, I remember that quote.
He observes, quote, children experiencing bullying often internalize their pain, leading to heightened anxiety and a pervasive sense of dread.
A pervasive sense of dread.
Yeah. And man, an agonizing amount of weight to carry around in a middle school backpack, you just start seeing them withdraw from everything.
Oh, totally. Like a kid who lived for soccer suddenly refuses to go to practice.
Or you see these wild fluctuations in mood, right? Like they lash out in screaming anger at a younger sibling over nothing.
Right, and that specific reaction lashing out at a safer, smaller target, like a sibling, it's a classic defense mechanism called displaced aggression.
Displaced aggression, because they can't yell at the bully.
Exactly. They cannot express their rage at the bully who holds all the power at school, so they discharge that pent-up anger at home where they know they won't be abandoned.
Wow.
And underlying all of this is just a devastating erosion of self-esteem. They often begin echoing the exact cruelties being hurled at them in the hallways.
That is so sad. And, we have to address the most critical warning sign the source outlines. The CDC explicitly warns that youth who are bullied are at a significantly increased risk for suicide-related behaviors.
This is so important.
If you hear any mention of self-harm, any suicidal ideation, or even just vague expressions of profound hopelessness, you stop observing and you act. There is no wait-and-see approach here. You immediately seek professional help.
Right. It functions exactly like the check engine light on your car dashboard.
Oh, I love that analogy.
It works so well, right? Because the light itself doesn't tell you if the transmission is failing or if a spark plug is misfiring.
Right. It just means pull over.
It simply flashes to indicate a critical malfunction under the hood. So a sudden refusal to eat in the cafeteria, or missing lunch money, or throwing away a favorite piece of clothing.
Those are the flashing lights.
Exactly. Those are the flashing lights signaling that a specific environment has become fundamentally unsafe.
Okay, so the warning lights are flashing. You know something is deeply wrong. How do you actually get under the hood without the child slamming it shut on your fingers out of defensiveness?
That is the hardest part. Approaching this requires immense tactical empathy. Timing and environment dictate everything here.
So no springing it on them in the car ride home?
Absolutely not. If you try to interrogate a child the second they get into the car after school, you are questioning them when their nervous system is already totally depleted from 8 hours of hypervigilance.
That makes total sense. They're exhausted.
You must wait for a calm, private, decompressed moment.
But okay, honestly, if I find out a kid I love is being tormented, my blood is boiling.
Of course.
Like, my immediate instinct is not going to be sitting them down and gently saying, I've noticed you seem a bit quiet. My instinct is to march down to the school, demand the bully's name, and completely take over to protect them.
Sure.
Why shouldn't an adult just step in, take the reins, and eliminate the threat for the kid?
Look, that is the most natural, fierce, protective instinct a human being can have. But if we look at the psychological mechanics of bullying, that overbearing reaction often does more damage to the child's psyche.
Really? How so?
Well, bullying fundamentally strips a child of their locus of control. They're made to feel entirely powerless.
Oh, I see.
So if an adult suddenly storms in, demands names, and takes over the situation, the adult is actually stripping away whatever tiny fraction of control the child is left.
Wow, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, they're terrified of the bully's retaliation, and now they're equally terrified of what your uncontrolled anger is going to trigger.
That makes total sense. You accidentally become just another overwhelming force dictating their life.
Exactly.
And I imagine the opposite extreme, the adults who say, just ignore them, words can't hurt you. That's got to be equally damaging, right?
Oh, it's toxic invalidation. Telling a child to just ignore it sends a very clear, very dangerous message. The agonizing pain you're experiencing every single day is actually no big deal, and your inability to brush it off is a personal failure.
Ouch. Yeah, that isolates them completely.
It really does. Which is why the source material outlines a very specific alternative,
Mm.
the use of I statements. You sit down in that quiet moment and say, "I've noticed you haven't seemed yourself lately, and I've been worried about you. I am here whenever you're ready."
So you remove the pressure of an interrogation entirely.
Right. You simply create a safe container for them to exist in.
And then once they do speak,
Your immediate job is to affirm their courage. You look them in the eye and say, "Thank you for trusting me. This is not your fault."
that's powerful.
And you also have to proactively dismantle the playground code of silence. Bullies thrive on the idea that reporting abuse is snitching.
Oh, yeah. Snitches get stitches, that whole toxic mindset.
Exactly. You have to rewire that definition for your child. Reporting is not tattling. It is a courageous, necessary boundary to stop someone from causing harm.
Okay, so let's follow that progression. The secret is out, the child has opened up, the adult instinct to rescue them has been suppressed, like we talked about.
Right.
How do we shift from wrapping them in bubble wrap to actually empowering them?
We have to look at the spatial reality of trauma. There is this powerful insight in the source from Jennifer Langley. She holds a master's in human resources and specializes in relational dynamics.
Yeah, I love her quote in the piece.
She notes, quote, "When a child is bullied, their world shrinks. Our job is to help them expand it again, reminding them of their inherent worth and power."
The imagery of a shrinking world is just haunting.
It is.
The bully essentially becomes the sun in this child's solar system,
Yeah.
right? Like every route to class, every choice of where to sit, every bathroom break, it all revolves entirely around avoiding the gravitational pull of that one person.
Perfectly said. The entire world narrows down to threat evasion.
So how do you help them expand that map again?
You focus relentlessly on the elements the child can control. Like, StopBullying.gov recommends role-playing very specific assertive responses.
Like practicing what to say.
Exactly. You sit in your living room and practice the exact phrases they will use. Stop it. Leave me alone. The key differentiator here is teaching assertiveness, not aggression.
Right, because if you teach a kid to just punch the bully in the nose, zero-tolerance policies at modern schools mean your child gets suspended right alongside the tormentor.
Exactly. Or worse, the bully gets the explosive emotional reaction they were fishing for in the first place.
Wait, they want the explosion.
Oh, absolutely. A bully is looking for a transaction. They deploy cruelty to extract a specific currency, tears, fear, or uncontrolled anger. We have to teach kids how to bankrupt that transaction.
Bankrupt the transaction, I love that.
And you do that by teaching them the physical posture of resilience. Bullies are basically opportunistic predators. They target isolation and slumped shoulders.
So it's about body language, too.
Huge part of it. You practice standing up straight, making direct eye contact, and walking with purpose. Combine that with the strategy of proximity, staying physically close to trusted teachers or groups of friends. Evolutionarily speaking, predators rarely attack the herd.
It's like helping your child forge emotional body armor.
That's a great way to put it.
They cannot control the arrows being fired at them, right? But they can control the thickness of their armor, their posture, their rehearsed responses, their physical proximity to allies.
Right.
And you also mentioned disrupting the transaction. The article talks about using de-escalation tactics like humor or deflection.
Now, this is a highly advanced piece of emotional armor, and the source emphasizes it should only be used if the child is physically safe.
Okay, good caveat.
But imagine a bully insults a child's shoes, expecting them to cry. And the child just gives a bored shrug and says, "Yeah, they're pretty ugly," and just walks away. It completely short-circuits the bully's neurological reward loop.
Because they wanted a reaction, and you gave them nothing.
Right. The script is broken. The bully looks foolish, and the child retains all their power.
The bored shrug is an incredible weapon. But, we have to be realistic for the listener here. Sometimes No amount of emotional body armor is going to protect a child if the environment itself is just deeply toxic.
Unfortunately, that's true.
If arrows are raining down from every direction all day long, personal resilience isn't enough. You have to manage the battlefield itself.
Which means engaging the institution.
Yeah.
And data published in 2019 by the National Center for Education Statistics proves that when schools implement and strictly enforce clear anti-bullying policies, victimization rates do drop.
So the institutional levers actually work.
They do work, but parents must know how to pull them effectively without getting bogged down in emotion.
And the playbook the article provides for this is meticulous. Step 1 is relentless documentation. You write down dates, times, specific locations, witnesses, and verbatim quotes.
Absolutely essential.
You do not walk into a meeting with a principal relying on vague, emotional anecdotes about your child's sadness. You walk in with a logbook.
Yes.
Then you initiate contact at the teacher level, again relying on this collaborative I statements, really aiming to build a partnership rather than an adversarial relationship.
But see, that collaborative mindset is tested very quickly when parents hit a massive, often unexpected administrative wall.
Oh, right, the privacy issue.
Yes, because a parent armed with a detailed logbook will naturally sit across from a school administrator and demand to know exactly how the bully is going to be disciplined.
Naturally. I wonder what's going to happen to the kid who hurt mine.
Right. And the school will frequently refuse to answer.
I can imagine how infuriating that is. You bring the evidence and it feels like the school is actively protecting the abuser by keeping secrets.
It feels like a massive betrayal of trust. But the source clarifies a critical legal reality here. Due to federal privacy laws, like FERPA in the United States, schools are strictly prohibited from disclosing the disciplinary actions taken against other students to anyone except that student's guardians.
So they legally can't tell you.
No, their hands are legally tied.
It's like trying to hack into a complex legal firewall. You are completely locked out of seeing the school's back-end code regarding the bully. So what do? I mean, you can't just accept defeat.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
You stop trying to hack the firewall and you pivot entirely to patching the vulnerabilities in your own child's environment.
Okay.
Instead of asking, what are you doing to punish them? You shift the demand to, what specific actionable safety measures are you implementing today to protect my child?
Oh, wow. That pivot changes the entire nature of the meeting.
It completely reframes it. It forces the administration out of a defensive crouch regarding privacy laws and into an active protective stance. You demand increased supervision in the specific hallways where incidents occurred. You request a permanent seating change on the bus. You establish a designated safe staff member the child can retreat to at any given moment. You systematically force the institution to build a physical safety net around your kid.
That is brilliant. But what if, and this is a hard question, but if you are listening to this and you've built the emotional body armor and you force the school to build the safety net and your child is still sinking, what then?
Yeah, the article addresses this with immense compassion.
Yeah.
Because there comes a point where family love and school administration are simply not equipped to handle the psychological fallout.
Right.
If you are seeing persistent PTSD-like symptoms, intense flashbacks, severe panic attacks at the thought of school, total social withdrawal, or academic failure that just refuses to budget, it's time to bring in clinical mental health support.
And the source is adamant that this is not a sign of parental failure.
It is the ultimate act of parental responsibility. A licensed therapist or child psychologist does something a parent cannot do. They provide a completely neutral ground.
Neutral ground.
Yes, because children often hide the depth of their pain to protect their parents from being sad.
Oh my gosh, that makes so much sense.
Right. A therapist creates a space where the child doesn't have to manage anyone else's emotions. They can systematically untangle the trauma, learn advanced coping mechanisms to manage their spiked cortisol, and truly deeply internalize that they did not deserve the abuse.
Let's trace the arc of what we've covered today. For anyone listening who suspects a child in their life is silently struggling, the roadmap starts with observation.
Become the attuned observer.
Exactly. You watch for the physical manifestations of that cortisol spike, the Tuesday morning stomach aches, the sudden academic drops, the sleep disruptions. From there, you suppress your own rage, and you open a safe, non-interrogative dialogue using those I statements.
And then you transition from the role of a rescuer to a trainer. Role-playing assertive responses, confident body language, and, power of the board shrug to bankrupt the bully's emotional transactions.
And finally, when you engage the school, you bring the logbook, You accept that legal firewall protecting the bully's disciplinary record, and you relentlessly demand actionable safety protocols for your own child.
All while keeping professional therapy in your toolkit if the trauma proves too heavy.
Yeah. You know, Jennifer Langley's final message in the text really anchors this whole discussion for me. She says bullying does not have to be the defining characteristic of a child's youth. When it is navigated with fierce love and strategic support, it can actually shake them into an adult of profound strength and empathy.
It really is a phenomenal transformation to witness. And, as we close, I want to leave you with a thought that extends beyond the middle school cafeteria. Because we often treat bullying as just a childhood issue,
Right.
like some unfortunate rite of passage. But look at adult society. Look at toxic corporate boardrooms, manipulative managers, and hostile workplaces.
Hmm.
Do bullies actually grow out of this behavior, or do they just get better at hiding it inside corporate structures?
Wow. Wait, so they just trade the playground for a corner office?
Exactly. So if you are spending time right now teaching your child how to set firm boundaries, how to look an aggressor in the eye, and how to advocate for their own safety, well, you aren't just helping them survive the 7th grade.
You're giving them life skills.
You are giving them the exact psychological tools they will need to navigate the power dynamics of the adult world for the rest of their lives.
You're not just surviving a crisis, you're building a highly resilient adult.
Precisely.
Well, keep your eyes open for those sudden shifts in behavior. Remember to check under the hood with empathy and know that you have the tools to help them expand their world again. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.